Video number 4, and we're going to be doing our first foray into PHP. Here I am on the memory stick again with the Kingston. Here's my 3 folders, XAMPP, last one. I'm going to go into the XAMPP, scroll right to the end. Now I've got 2 new files I didn't have when I installed this, but that's fine. I'm interested in the application XAMPP control. Right click, run as administrator. Say yes to the request. Thinks about running it. Notice, by the way, we've now got an XAMPP icon, XAMPP control down the bottom. It can take a little while for it to load up, by the way. It's worth noting. And you need to give it time. My laptop's just restarted. It needs to make sure that everything's set and ready to go. You're looking for a very clean window at the bottom here. So if it does take a while, you really want to make sure that everything runs correctly. Don't panic about it. The most important thing here is when you click on Start, you're looking for the PID. You're looking for 2 ports to appear, 80 and 43. It also be necessary that we get a green light. That yellow is not yet ready. That is now telling me it's perfectly fine. That allows me to click on Start for my port, to get a PID and then a port. The most important part here is the port 3306. Green tells me that that's running. I can now click on the X to close this. Now I can close that because it is down here as the icon, and in fact if I right click Apache, and I can also, they're both green, that shows me they're running okay, and I can go to show and see everything and close, no problems there. If you've got it in the bottom and Apache and MySQL are running, then it's not a problem keeping that going for as long as you wish while the laptop or computer is running. The other thing worth noting, by the way, with this system is if you run it all the time, you may wish to change these to ticks. These will run into the service, which means every time you switch your computer on, Apache is running in the background. But remember, if you do that, don't have it on the memory stick, because if you don't have the memory stick plugged in, all kind of strange things will happen. So don't do that. Okay, going to the top of here, the folder that you're going to get so used to is htdocs. Htdocs is where the Apache server looks for when it's looking for any websites that you type in. So I've got a series of them, sessions 1 to 5, plus a test one here, which is the final one. I'm going to open up Firefox. I use Firefox for most of my work. I also do Hex, and I also have Google Chrome. I've got this opening up here. Remember, it starts with localhost, and basically imagine that when I type in localhost, that's looking to that htdocs folder. So if I want to refer to my session 1, I have to put session 1 session underscore. Now I've typed it incorrectly there. I forgot to put the slash in. Session underscore. Press enter, and we saw this in the very first, or in fact it was the second video. This is the contact sheet, and it's purely the HTML document. If I go into session 1, I'm going to right click and I can choose edit with Notepad++. That's because I've installed it onto this laptop rather than simply put it onto a memory stick. If you've got it onto the memory stick, you can't do that. You'll have to run Notepad++ and then go around and find the file. But because I've got it installed, I can tell that to open up this way. Now what that's going to do is open up the code, and you can see the HTML that we first looked at in video number 2. Pure HTML, reference to a CS, but that's all running there. I'm going to go back to there, and I'm now going to open up another tab. I'm going to do localhost again, because obviously that's the htdocs area, but I'm going to load up the part which is session 2. Session 2 looks identical. There is no difference between the page at all, but there is a subtle difference to the code. I'm going to open up htdocs. There's session 2. Right click, remember it's index. I've saved this from Notepad++ as index.php, not .html, because I need the system to know that these are PHP documents. I'm going to edit this with Notepad. There it is, there's the original one. And you'll notice when I swap over, there's a subtle change, and it's this part here which is the subtle change. Okay, so how does this work? Well, it's actually relatively simple, but let's have a look at each line by line. This first part tells the system that this is PHP. It's a tag, it's an open tag marker with a question mark, then PHP, and that's saying this is PHP. There is a shortcut version, and that is that. But because some systems won't work properly, get used to doing it the full way. To be honest, it's 3 more clicks and you're guaranteed that's going to work. But if you go for the shortened version, you're not guaranteed. It's silly. The end version, notice there isn't a greater than symbol to end this tag. The whole thing is enveloped right to the end here. Question mark, end. So that's the way you declare your PHP. It's really simple, but do remember it. The question mark and the greater than, less than symbols. Most important part at the top here, the PHP. Now this opens up a session. Now what sessions are is when you log in using PHP, when you're connecting to a database or anything else, you want your computer to register itself as having a unique session with this website. This is how your website knows to give you a different experience to everyone else. So session start actually tells PHP to register a completely new session, unique session ID. So whenever you deal with this website, that session ID is sent to the website. So it goes, oh yeah, I remember what you were doing last time. That's fine. What you want to do now is, so it can track you. This is how your shopping carts work and everything else. So we start a session, session underscore start, 2 brackets, and then the most important thing with PHP, the thing that everyone gets wrong at some stage, is a semicolon at the end of the line. Always end every line with a semicolon. There's no exception to that rule. So that runs that command. Session start simply tells the system to start this session. By the way, the question might be, well, what happens if a session is already going? Does this open a second session? And the answer is no. If a session already exists, session start simply makes sure that session continues on this page. So it's not a start all the time. That would be ridiculous. The next part is a 2-stage command. This is one set of command on this side. MySQL underscore connect. This is a connect command to connect your website to your database, to the database management system. So this is to the same thing that your PHP PHP MyAdmin connects to, or whatever else you want to call it. You can call it if you really want to. And that's a weird thing to say. So do recognize that you've got to actually connect to the database management system. That's the overall database system itself, not the database. We're going to connect to that in a minute. Now, what I've done here is you could simply have that as a single command. You don't have to have this part here. You could just have that line running, without the bracket obviously at the end. The advantage of doing this is that this assigns the results of that to a variable. Now that's your connection. The reason for assigning it to a variable is 2-stage. One is for the next line. This is saying if not. So if this line here fails, then it's going to store a term called false in here. It's going to say it didn't work. And so if open bracket exclamation mark, and the exclamation mark either not, if not $db underscore server. So if not that variable, these are variables. Hopefully you've done some programming. So I'm storing the results of this into this variable. And if that has failed at all, if not there, if that's got nothing, then this says die, which means simply stop the website at this point. Don't run anything else after this point. Database not connected is what will appear on the screen. What I can do is I can just show you that by putting rot. I'm just going to save that, go to session number 2 and try to reload. And there's the problem with database. Please contact administrator. So what it's done is it's tried to connect this. This has failed. It's stored the failed in there, and this is basically said, well, that didn't work then. If not DB server, then die, database not connected. and it's fallen over. So what I can do now is put that back in there to root, save that, press F5, and there it is back. You may be asking yourself, hold on, how do you know what to call it? Localhost? Well, we know it's localhost because that's what we're connecting to. In this case, root is the standard username. This is the system. This is the username, and this is the password to access the system. Root is the default setting for any MySQL system, and root is generally assigned no password at the start. Now, because I'm running this off a memory stick on my laptop, the risk of someone hacking into it is zero. There's nothing I have to worry about. It's all test on my memory stick. So even if I lost the memory stick, yes, they'd be able to get into it, but all they'd be able to find out is a telephone number for Mickey Mouse. So I'm not worried about that. But when you come to upload this to the web, onto the web, though you may still keep it localhost because from the computer's point of view that's what you'll be, the username and the password will change to something much more complex. Anyway, we've seen this died database not connected, and then it put up please see the administrator, and down here what we've got here is it's connected there, and then what it's trying to do here is it's now trying to connect to the actual database. And notice I called the database contact, and it's using this connection to form the bond. So this is the message we actually saw when the database fell over, and that's because though it could still recognize, it could still set this up. When it tried to connect to the database, it couldn't connect because these settings were invalid. So MySQL _select _DB. So select the database, contact. Where is the contact database? It's on host with a username, root, and no password. Assign the results of that to this, and again, if it fails, problem with database, please contact administrator. So this line is run. This whole thing here connects our system to our database, and that's its pure function. In fact, only two lines connect to the database. That line and that line. Only those two lines are of interest. The other two are simply to test things out. Do notice the curly brackets here. You'll put rounded brackets. They're not. They're curly brackets. There's no semicolon after them because the semicolon terminates the instruction that is here. This is if. This is an if statement. If this is true, then do what's in the curly brackets. If this is true, then do everything within these curly brackets. And it's the instructions that need the semicolon. Have a try. Get your database running. Keep looking back at the code. The most common mistakes are missed semicolons, confusing a rounded bracket for a curly bracket or a curly bracket for a rounded bracket. Take your time and get it right. All variables have the dollar mark in front. It is the dollar. That is shift 4. And I've used underscores. You don't have to have used underscores. You don't have to have used my variable names. These variable names are up to you. That is quite a detailed look at this. There is nothing else different in this system at all. That's the only thing we're doing PHP wise. I hope that's been useful. Do go over it, make sure you understand it before you move on. Thanks very much. Hopefully see you in video 5.